Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're watching this from. And I'm going to teach you today, and I'm trying to say it not with an Australian accent, please. It's today. I can't do it. So this afternoon we're going to make a decorative pocket. I used this pocket on my Megan dress, but Talia Waldvogel, who lives in upstate New York, did something really amazing for our Pinafore hack some months ago, and I've asked her whether I could use those pockets to demonstrate how you can make them like really pretty. And she said, oh, of course you can. So here are the pictures of our beautiful girls in these fantastic little pinafores with the lovely pockets, and I'm going to show you how to make the sunflower pocket. This is where the little hand goes in. We've got a trim, we've got a ruffle, and we've got the petals that go around our little sunflower. And of course, when I saw this, I immediately thought, wouldn't it be great if this went round a whole round? Now, when I did this sample dress last night, so you could actually see what it looks like, I totally forgot about that. But I'm going to talk you through how you would just do that all the way around, because of course you don't cut anything away. And the pattern for this is available from the Frocks and Frolics sewing circle. And if you go in there and then go under the files at the top, the pattern for all these is in there, and some other stuff as well, which is free. And the other one is the apple, which I've already prepared as well. So let's get started on showing you how to do a side pocket, which is very decorative, the shape of a sunflower and an apple. Let's go. So to make Talia's super duper pocket, we will first have to attach our frill to the outside of our little facing here. So to do the frill, you need to just fold this over, and then we're going to go on the sewing machine and we're just going to pleat it all the way along. So I'm just going to pleat this under and move along it like this. You can pleat those pleats before, and actually I haven't really measured that. I think having just quite a long length, so it's always right and you don't run out, is fine. And I'm just pushing it under there with my fingers. Like. Now I'm going to attach what I've pleated to here, like that. Okay, and I'll just go around it. It's just the right amount actually. And one thing you have to be watching out for is when you put this on, make sure that it's a tiny bit longer, so that it will not have a gap here after you put it on, because that happened to me and I had to really pull this over. You can see that pleat was meant to be there, but I had to pull it over. And my line here this time is like there, so I line it up with the edge. You don't need to do a centimeter really, so that line or foot width will do for this. So I'm going to go all the way around, just moving my fabric into position as I go. There we are. Now I've got that in. All I have to do here is to iron it, so my seam allowance is actually facing the other way. And you can see here at the tip now that you do need this. I only just gave this enough. Now I'm gonna put just a pin here just to hold it in place for a minute. So now my petals, I need to make next. Cut out 8 of each, and then we're going to put the right sides together, and we're going to sew along the edge. And again, you don't need a centimeter seam allowance here. And also I'm going to go down with my stitch length a bit so that it can fray. And maybe one more stitch, and down the other side. Now we're going to cut this back. Usual story, let's leave like 2-3 millimeters standing, not too much. You've actually got a number of options with this. You can put these on straight onto the item you're making and top stitch them, or you could just top stitch them first like I've done here. And I'm going to give this a quick press. And we're going to also put a little pleat in here. And now I can take this and I can put these behind my little flower so that they peep out evenly. And of course we're going to stitch here so that we catch them. You need to make sure that that's the case. Work my way around. Now if you wanted to stitch these on first, what you would do is a little bit different. Open this up and don't go too close here to the side. We're going to leave off the side a little bit so that the seam allowance can go there. Put a pin here and on the other side, and we're just going to stitch that down. Okay, so whichever way you prefer. So I could now go on, put the next one, and then stitch these on first. So in that case, I make my stitch length a bit bigger. You could triple stitch this, but I'm just going to stitch carefully around the edge, lining up with that little red line. And I have sewn all the way around here now. Right, so that one works this way. Alternatively, because I've already done these, you can do it this way as well. So once this is done now, I can stitch down here. It's a bit of top stitching again, and that would hold in my petals, lining up with that little line there. Oh, look, I lost one. One fell out. Let's tuck it back in. Can't fall out. So you can see that's stitched on, so it can't move. These will move, so I hand stitch them on to my piece. So that's up to you how you want to do that. But at this point, now I can cut this, and you can see you needed that slant there. So if you cut it off too much, you'd end up with something that you'd have to pull over. And take our facing, and we're going to sew that one, because this will make the opening really neat and clean. And I'm going to sew 1 centimeter seam allowance now all the way around. Line up with your presser foot. That's almost 1 centimeter. It's an opening, so it's not vital that you do exactly the centimeter. Now I'm going to cut back my seam allowance, as you do. Again, don't leave much standing, and because this turns to the inside, I'm also going to snip it just a little bit so that I can now turn this to the inside like that. Right, but to make sure that this doesn't go anywhere, it's a really good way to just top stitch along the top edge. That's called understitching, and you're holding your seam allowance in the direction of your lining, and that way when you turn it, this won't roll out. With the understitching, you want to be quite close to the edge here. And then carefully move it. If I turn this in and I press it, it will automatically lie, so you can actually see a little bit of the red. And there we are. You get a really perfect round opening, which will not roll back. You could leave it like this, but I want to top stitch it as well. I think that would be quite pretty. I'm using all this yellow, and let's go. Line up to the same point on your presser foot that you feel comfortable with, and guide it all the way around. That way nothing can roll, and it's very, very pretty. My last and final step is to just simply slide the pocket underneath it. We're going to turn this over in a minute so you can see. So that goes over and that has then your pocket inserted. But I'm going to do this, of course, from this side because I can see what I'm doing. I've got my under pocket there. Right, we're going to stitch this down. Make sure you don't stitch this, just the pocket. And that's my pocket in. I've also overlocked this. This is quite an important one. And I've got it on the one side. Now, like I just said, mine here doesn't go towards the back. If you wanted to have yours towards the back as well, you would actually need a lining here. We need this time. So when we do it on this side, we start in exactly the same way as on that side. We are going to sew this on all the way around. My next step is to take my lining. I'm going to pull this back into position now and just make sure that I do, there we go. And then that'll be so much easier after. So now I can sew in here this time. And now I cut this bit back, same way I did on the other side. And then we're going to snip it. There we are. And because none of this will ever roll out because we're actually doing a fake one, we are going to just iron this. And then I'm going to turn it and press it again. This time I would suggest you press it from this side here so that you can get it the same. So you've got that little bit of red peeping out. Now when I stitch this down, we don't want this to show, so I'm going to actually trim this. Whoops, because it's all fake. Put mine opposite each other. And oh, look at that. That's good. That worked. I was a bit worried, but no, it's absolutely fine. I'm going to put this fake pocket on this side. It just looked like a big round once it's sewn together. I think that would be so, so cute. Right, I'm going to now stitch on this side, same way we did before, but we're catching it all this time. Basically, we're almost done. The last thing to do now is to pop these on top of each other. But I think a centimetre will be best because you don't want too much of this away, right? So let's go. 1 centimetre seam allowance on here. And whoa, like a machine gun, right? And now, just imagine you had those petals in there as well, obviously. Or it gives you a good idea what it would be like without petals. I think that's really cool as well. I like it. And I'm ironing this seam towards the back. Yeah, so just towards the back. And that's it. First part of how to do a beautiful little side pocket, but with the additional part going towards the back. Now I think that would be great, and I can't wait to see some of yours actually doing that because that would be awesome. So the other pocket I want to show you is again something that Talia's come up with, and that is the little applique apple. So for my apple, I need my apple pattern. Then I need the pocket facing and the actual pocket which goes underneath it again as well. And I want white because I've bitten into the apple, and so it's white. If I do my leaf here and the leaf is coming out like that, then I want to put my leaf on first and then the stem is appliqued on afterwards. So I would take that off, and we're going to do this with what's called a satin stitch, which goes zigzaggy all the way around. So, but always start at the bit which is not seen. So there we go. You can also use Wonder Web or Bonder Web to fix it in place, and you just move round, and the outside stitch should hit the outside. And then the inside stitch goes wherever, and so that none of this pulls, we do that. stop on the outside one when you're turning, so that your next stitch goes to the inside, because otherwise you get a really ugly little stitch there. So I'm just covering that nicely. A few stitches further over is actually nicer than this, because I've got a bit of rubbish standing out. Give it a good press. As always, pressing is really important. And if you're using something that will really stretch underneath it, you might want to put a stabilizer that just rips off underneath afterwards. So now I'm going to pin in my apple, so that can't move and go anywhere. And then I'm going to stitch all the way around that. So, like I just said, if you don't have the right color, use a color that's entirely different. I'm using black. Because I don't have a nice brown or red. Oh, that's much better. So I've gone a bit bigger and it looks much nicer. So now I'm going to do my triple straight stitch from the top and just like shape it a little bit. I hope I'm doing Talia's lovely pocket justice here. This is not something that comes very natural to me. I'm not a applique expert by any means. Now I'm going to do a few lines up, so come in on one side. That makes it a lot easier, doesn't it? So maybe a bit wiggly woggly. Make sure you stop on the forward motion. There you go. Turn it and then do a little bit of a wiggly woggly in that direction. There we go. That's my first sleeve, and then I can put one next to that. And again, give it some shape. Now I just want my stem to come out from there, so I'm going to do that with a triple stitch or a zigzag stitch, which is going to be my stem. Now what do we need to do? Well, take our pockets now, straight the pockets because there's no trim. And I'm going to sew around here, same as before. Then cut it back, snip, we snip again, we understitch, and then we can turn it. And there we've got the understitching, catching the seam allowance, and now I can turn it. And again, it's better when you iron it from the other side. And this will totally need top stitching from the outside as well, because this is gonna roll whatever you do. If you've got some really heavy fabric there pushing against it, like I do with the cord, my needle cord is pretty heavy, right? That'll still pull out, but you can see, wow, that's very cool, isn't it? So now I'm going to top stitch this. And last not least, I take the pocket that goes underneath it. Voila, look at that, beautiful. So I do exactly the same again. I just pop these on top of each other. And there it is, one completed apple pocket. And the back looks really neat too. Overlocked it all the way around. I hope you enjoyed creating these pockets or watching how they're done, and get really inspired to do your own. And Talia, thank you very much for giving me the inspiration to make both the sunflower pocket and the apple pocket. We are taking a break for the next 2 weeks, but if you watch closely, I am going to do the Mama Duck applique for you at some stage in between. But I need to find time during this very, very busy Christmas time. My son's home from college, so just keep an eye out for when that's popping up. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you back in January when we're doing serious pockets. Bye for now.